Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Are you ready? I don't know how many sports we'll be playing tonight, but I am certainly ready for some fun, some merriment. And the question that I've asked most of you at this point, most people that I'm introducing, is what fun sports and fun memory is your favorite that you wanted to share? And for me, mine was in fourth grade. I was on a basketball team because I love basketball. But our team was terrible, absolutely terrible. We lost every game but one. And I was terrible. I didn't score any points except two. And my favorite memory was scoring those points, and they were actually the game winning points. And that was pretty awesome to help win one game and change our, I don't really know if it changed our narrative, but we were not a complete losing team, which was great to be a part of. I hope, well, I'll be sharing your guys' fun memories as well. And they are quite fun, I have to say. Let's get into the meat of the meeting, though. 3 sections. Speakers who prepared are going to speak and do some amazing stuff. Second, table topics, which is impromptu section. Anybody can be a part of it. And then the third section is evaluations. So all the prepared speeches get evaluated, not only so the prepared speakers can get better, but so that everyone in our group can get better as well. Functionaries, we have also play in that role, except they focus on very specific topics. For example, our timer tonight is Bhakti, and she's going to explain her role.
So we have 2 prepared speeches tonight, and I'm assuming both of them will be within 5 to 7 minutes. So at around 5 minutes, I'll be showing this green background. At around 6 minutes, I'll be showing this yellow background. And around 7 minutes, I'll be showing this red background, after which you have 30 seconds to wrap up. Try to remain within the time. Over to you, Xavier.
Our next functionary tonight is our odd counter. Our odd counter tonight is going to be Preetam. Preetam, can you explain your role?
My job as the R counter tonight is to count the filler words. So filler words are so, and things like that. I already counted 2 from Xavier and 1 from Bhakti. So I started my report. Be careful. Back to you, Xavier.
Thank you, Preetam. Our grammarian tonight is going to be Alex, who is sitting right next to me. Alex, can you explain your role?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight I will be our grammarian, and I will be looking for examples of grammar that add to the power of your message or take away from the power of your message. And a lot of that has to do with rhetoric. In addition to that, I'll be looking for the word of the day, which is merriment. And it is a noun referring to activities or things that are happening that make people happy. So to use it in a sentence, around New Year's Eve, there's always lots of merriment at the parties and in general. Merriment. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Alex. Additionally, we have somebody who works behind the scenes. He is our clap master and our Zoom master tonight. He's out here making everyone look good, putting the spotlight on him and clapping, and that is Hassan. So thank you so much, and give yourself a clap. With that, we're going to dive right into our prepared speeches. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Matthew Mack. Evaluating Matt is Destin. Destin, can you explain what Matt's going to be focusing on tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Matt is working on his motivational strategies pathway, and tonight he will be giving a level 3 elective speech, which is focused on vocal variety. And he asked me to look for vocal variety and his connection to his emotions, how he does convey them throughout his speech. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Destin. Matt Mack has been a pretty long time Toastmaster at this point, getting better and better, improving, especially through contests. We've seen him go very far, especially in humorous contest. And tonight, Matt is going to give a speech titled Khadijah's Story. I asked Matt what sort of fun sports and fun memory he had. And he actually mentioned an event that happened 2 days ago. We have a yearly Memorial Day party that some of us got together for. And part of that yearly Memorial Day party is playing Ultimate Frisbee. It is very fun, but there was only a few of us this time. So we ran around a lot and realized how old we were the next day because of soreness. But it was so much fun, especially because COVID has kept us so far away from each other. But with so many people being vaccinated, we could play a nice game of Ultimate Frisbee. Now Matt Mack's gonna start his speech, Khadijah's Story. Off to you.
The sun shone brightly over Herat, Afghanistan. On the morning that Khadijah, a 23-year-old Afghan woman, picked up the copper lantern and poured its kerosene all over her burqa and ignited herself ablaze. Khadijah was the victim of 4 years of relentless domestic abuse at the hand of her husband. He would beat her, call her ugly, dumb, a nobody. And to Khadijah, suicide felt like the only way out. It wasn't the escape she was looking for because Khadijah survived her burns and was taken to a hospital in Herat where she was covered with burn dressings from head to toe. Her husband was imprisoned for expected domestic violence, but this is very unusual for Afghanistan, where domestic violence and abuse to women is usually not criminalized. As she lay in the hospital, her husband's family told Khadijah she couldn't even see her son unless she were to go to the police and tell them that she had lied about his history of abuse to her. Through tears, Khadijah told a journalist, "Women are handcuffed in this country. We have no choices." Mr. Toastmaster, Toastmasters and guests, Afghanistan truly is the worst place in the world to be a woman. 2/3 of girls do not go to school. 87% of women are illiterate. 3/4 of girls are married before the age of 16. And 90% of women suffer domestic violence in Afghanistan. When I read Khadijah's story in the Time magazine, I texted Hassan immediately and said, "I have to give a speech. I want to tell Khadijah's story." And as I started to write this speech, I told Khadijah's story in the introduction. And then at that point, I stopped and said, "What more can I say?" What can you say when you hear a story like that? I like to give speeches that are inspiring and at the end offer a charge of something we can do to make a change happen. what could I do for Khadija? What could we do for the women of Afghanistan? And then I remembered some wisdom of some friends of mine who have told me when I've listened to their stories, stop trying to fix it. You're trying to fix it. Just be with me. Feel what I'm feeling. And so I let Khadija's story really sink in. I felt the anger at her husband for hitting her, for beating her, the shame to be called ugly, dumb, a nobody. I felt the loss of not being able to be with a son and the hopelessness. When we hear stories, our hearts grow. Reading about Khadija's story has grown my heart. And our hearts don't only grow bigger by hearing stories, they grow connected. And as more and more of us expand our hearts in this way, the fabric of our collective lives grows stronger, and this is a strength that can create change. Reading Khadija's story brought me back a few years to my early friendship with someone named Azim, a Fulbright scholar from RIT. And a day in August of 2016 that I was at his house, he started to share with me some of his pain as an Afghan. He was also from Afghanistan. On that day, Taliban had broken into the American University of Afghanistan, a place where his brothers studied. They killed multiple students, multiple professors, and Azim was a mess until he knew that his brother was okay. I had just come from a birthday party at my family's house, and there I was on the couch hearing this story from Azim, and it all just snapped for me. My family was close by. I didn't have to worry about their safety, but every day, Azim had this fear that his brother, sister, or mother might be killed by a bomb. The only words that I had at that point were, "It's not fair. It's not fair." By sharing Azim's stories with him, we grew a trust. And he was able later to ask me to help write a letter to support his application for asylum when he graduated. Now, Azim also became friends with a lot of my friends. And 2 years ago, when his cousin was hurt in a blast in a mosque in Kabul, we were able to send some videos to him stating that we shared his pain. Because we met Azim, heard his story, and our hearts grew, we grew a trust by which we not only could support Azim, but his cousin who was directly hurt in the violence in Afghanistan. It all starts with a decision to hear a story and to expand our hearts. Don't ask, what can I do to fix it, and get frustrated. Just be present, listen, and feel. Mr. Toastmaster.
You're here, Matt. Absolutely shared a beautiful story for all of us to hear. And it's one of my favorite parts of this group is that we bring forward stories, our perspectives in our lives of events that have happened. And we all get to hear that and grow to know each other deeper. This is the stage where we get to send Matt some love notes, which he definitely deserves tonight. You can do it right through the chat. Just send Matt something that you liked about his speech. And if Madam Timer, you can give us 1 minute for that. That'd be awesome.
Minute is up.
Our next speaker tonight is Ruchi. Evaluating Ruchi will be Is it you? It's you. Alex, tell us what Ruchi's going to deliver tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, especially Ruchi. Tonight, Ruchi is going to be working on her leadership style speech. So at the beginning of most pathways, there's an opportunity to explore our leadership style, and that's what she'll be doing tonight in 5 to 7 minutes. And with her dynamic leadership project, that's what she'll be working on, Mr. Toastmaster.
I asked Ruchi what her memorable sports and fun memory was that she could share with us tonight. Well, that I could share with us tonight. And she described a time where she was playing a game of chase and she ended up on the roof and falling off and actually hurting her arm. But she lived it up for sure. Got all of the comforts and pleasures that she could out of it. Made sure it was worth her while. Ruchi's speech tonight is going to be called "What Can Leaders Give?" What can leaders give, Ruchi?
Growing up as a middle child in my family, I never really got a chance to lead. The extent of my leadership was to lead my younger brother into some pranks. Not everyone seemed to like it. We loved it though. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and most welcome guests. After my high school, I always wanted to be a teacher. But no one ever told me that teaching and leadership are more similar than different. When I graduated from my master's in deaf education in 2018, I went to my first full-time classroom in Washington, DC. And I saw there many students and double the number of eyes looking at me, expecting something. I knew they were expecting me to teach them science, but I didn't think that that was it. There was something besides the content education that they were looking for that I didn't understand at the time. As I grew into teaching in those 3 years, I continued to learn. And having led them through several events, I have discovered that leadership is a part and parcel of teaching and education. Today, I'll share with you a story of an event that I recently led. And I discovered that my leadership style is essentially democratic. I teach environmental science to high school students, high school deaf students. And the topic of our webinar was gentrification and environmental justice. For who have not seen or heard those words before, I'm sure you have seen them in action. Gentrification really means revamping and developing a place, making it better, cleaner, and in the context of United States, whiter. Eventually, the place becomes richer and the whole culture changes. Know that in this situation, the eviction rates also go up. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of the people equally, regardless of their race, their color, their origin, their income, etc. When I told this topic to my students, all of us, including me, did not know exactly what we were going to do because I am new to the country and they did not see the word gentrification. But because our school is based in DC, they all knew what it meant once they read the meaning of it. Washington, DC is one of the cities which is going through a huge gentrification act as we speak. So I had two jobs: educate my students about the topic and educate them to educate the whole school about the topic. I wanted all of them to participate and be involved in that seminar. So I gave them a template structure because as a teacher, I have to give them some structure. But I asked their participation as they took roles of what are the things they want to do and what are the capacities they would want to support in that webinar. They signed up for certain roles, and eventually I assigned one of my students to be the opening speaker. She asked me, can you clarify what that means? Will I be presenting in front of the audience? I said, yes, I think that's what it means. You'd be opening it, introducing the topic briefly. She said, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm too nervous. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to do it. In that time, in my heart, I knew that she can do it. Of all the students, well, teachers are not supposed to have favorites, but she is one of my favorite students. And I think that was the time when I should tell her that she is my favorite student. So I said, Chloe, you are one of my best students. Of all the people, you can do it. She had that sweet smile on her face and she said, okay, I will try. Things went on. And remember that I am teaching high school students. So there are many things that are happening in here. We are online, so there are tech difficulties that happen every day. My students, some of them have jobs and some of them have family distractions. The others have siblings. And they're all teenagers. Whenever they're not feeling well, they can just turn the video off. So as I assigned role to one of my students to present a part of the presentation, she started joining my class with her camera like this. I just could never see her. I wanted her to be responsible and I tried calling her out. Her productivity went down and she suddenly joined my class one day with her camera looking like a 1950s TV with all the sparkles on the screen. The day was approaching and I called her out. I took her to the breakout room and said, Rhiannon, what's up with your camera? She said, oh, it's fine, no problem. I said, no, I can't see you. We have the workshop this Friday. She said, this Friday? I said, yes, we have been working on for a month. Oh, what time? He said, it's at noon. That means 10 a.m. my time? She's in Colorado. Yes. Oh, can you make it? I don't know. Tell me now, a yes or a no. After a few back and forth, she said, no, I can't make it. She did. Eventually, we had the webinar with all the students. She apologized to me, and I already forgave her by that time. In this seminar, on the day, students who showed the audience, including 4 guests. I learned that as a leader, 2 of the most important things for me to do were assuring my students that they can do it when they didn't believe that they can do it, and forgiving them for when they were not ready to do it, because, well, that is where they are. Over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, Richie, if you're as amazing of a teacher as you are a speaker, which I can only guess, then these kids are in great hands. Let's send our love notes. Madam Town.
Time's up.
Thank you, Bhakti. Now this ends our prepared speaker section. Our next section is going to be the table topics section. To lead us through that is our president and tonight our table topics master, Bhakti. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Xavier. This is what we call the most fun part of the meeting. And tonight's theme also happens to be sports and fun. So in this part of the meeting, anybody and everybody is allowed to join and speak up on a question that I will be asking. Before that, I will ask our timer, which is myself, the timing rules. So I'll just quickly explain the timing rules. You have 1 to 2 minutes to give your speech. At 1 minute, I'll be showing the green background. At 1.5 minutes, I'll be showing this yellow background. And at 2 minutes, I'll be showing this red background. And then you have 30 seconds to wrap up your speech. Let me get back to my original background. Here we go. And there is another rule that you have to follow, which will be explained by our grammarian, which is Alex.
Everyone, thank you, Madam. Everyone, thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Yes, you have to use the word of the day in your table topic. The word of the day is merriment or merriment, depending on how you want to say it. But merriment is a noun and it means activities and things to do that make people happy. So around New Year's, there's all sorts of merriment, and in the spring, there's also all sorts of merriment as people get out into the sunshine. Merriment is the word of the day. Use it. Madam Table Topics Master.
So we have just 2 simple rules. Use the word of the day, which is merriment, and be within time. With that, let's see who wants to go first. All right, I'll
I can
start.
go first.
Hey, Stephanie. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I'm new to this group. I'm happy to join you. So my sentence is like, when I travel back home, I will look at my parents with merriment in my eyes.
Is it Stephanie? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So, Stephanie, I'll ask you a question and you have 1 to 2 minutes to answer that. So, my question to you um, is there something that is not considered sports? If you know, breakdancing was recently added to the Olympics as an official sport. Is there something that you considered to be sports, but maybe people don't really consider it as a sport?
I have 2 minutes to think, right? Mm, just walking.
So,
I
Stephanie, just so you know, you get to answer the question however you want to. Bhakti, ask it, but it's your time to shine. So whatever you answer will definitely work.
So I have to use the word merriment in the sentence, right?
Yep.
Yes. I think considering working as a sport will be a time of merriment for joggers.
Okay, Stephanie. Thank you for that answer. Who wants to go next? Hassan. So I have the opposite question for you. What is a sport that is considered sport, but you don't consider it to be a sport? For me, it's wrestling. I don't really consider wrestling to be a sport. Is there something that you it is a sport, but you don't consider it as a sport?
Thank you very much, Bhakti. I was a bit offended when you said that wrestling is not a sport for you, because in my country, wrestling is a national sport and we love it. We have a national championship every year, and it's a time of embarrassment for the whole country. So for me, I recently discovered sports and that I didn't know much about, which is they call it e-sport. It's about playing video games. It's really a booming industry now, especially many colleges since COVID, they're trying to make more money with esports because they can't organize like other sport like basketball or football. And I was surprised, how is it possible that esport is considered really a sport? People are just playing, they're sitting, all the day in front of their screen, and then this is considered a sport. And you even have hundreds, sometimes of a thousand of people going to stadiums, I don't know, any other arena to watch the games. You have millions of people or billion maybe on internet watching the games. I was, is this a sport? You don't exercise at all. You're just sitting the whole day, which is not good for your health. But many people around the world, they love it and they find it as something full of merriment. I agree with that, but for me, we shouldn't call it esport. It should be, I don't know, just call it a game, video game, something like that, but not sport. Because for me, sport is about sweating.
Great answer, Hassan. Who wants to go next? Preetam. My question for you is, which is the favorite sport that you have played? And could you also explain the trials and tribulations you had to take to maybe win or maybe just have fun with that particular sport?
Thank you for that question, because I was a big fan of a sport that is very popular in India, in the UK, Australia, and the name of the sport is called cricket. Don't know how many people have played this game. I can tell you something. This is a game which has the most rules of all the games invented by humanity. It has more than 300 rules. So first of all, you need to invest 1 to 2 years just to understand the rules. Then you get to play it. I played the game never at a professional level. It was always for merriment with other teenagers in my locality. So what happens in that game? When I'm playing with teenagers, there is a concept in cricket where you get out. Somebody is pitching a ball and a batsman is holding a stick and hitting that ball. So there are 3 pieces of stumps behind the batsman. If the ball hits that, the batsman is out and has to go back to the pavilion. What happened when I was playing with teenagers, where somebody got out? They would say, "Oh, I was not ready. You pitched the ball when I was thinking about something else." That's what happened. Worst, if they were the ones who bought the bat, they would say, "If you get me out, I am taking my bat home. We are not playing anymore." So those were the kinds of things that we dealt with playing the sport as teenagers. And it was a lot of fun. More than playing, most of our time was spent in trying to persuade the owners of the ball or the bat not to go home so that we can continue playing. So that is my answer to your question, Bhakti, and back to you.
Thank you, Pritam. That was a very Indian answer. All Indians love cricket. Who wants to go next? Since we have loads of time. Oh, let me pick Destin. So, Destin, do you love video games?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, my question to you is, do you consider esports to be a real sport? And why or why not?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I was actually having a blast when Hassan was giving his speech because I really think the same. Esports shouldn't be considered as a sport. And as a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I used to play video games a lot. I would play all the day, forgetting about eating. And my mom would come into my room and say, "You'll never go anywhere with this. You never get paid for playing this." I wish I could tell her today that, "Mom, you were wrong." Because of course, just like Hassan said, there's no sweating, there is no exercising, there's no practicing. There's a lot of merriment, of course, but the point of sport is like your body is working, like working out, and you develop muscles, you develop a lot of reflexes, like even your body starts acting by itself when you are a trained professional sports person. So, which is not the case for esport. You have to play different games, and those games have different rules, and you are sitting on your chair all the day, like you don't forget about eating when you are captivated by a video game. You forget about anything else, and that might cause a lot of disease like obesity. Um, yeah, so there are more bad drawbacks in esports than in usual sports. Like, it's not healthy at all. So I won't consider it as a sport. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Excellent answer, Dustin. So we have two people who do not consider, apparently Matt also doesn't consider it as a sport. We can have one more table topic. Who wants to go next? Matt. So my question to you is, other than sport, what is some fun activity that you love to do and have a good memory of?
Sure. Oh, sorry, technical difficulties. Okay. Well, this talk of sports, especially things that border on sports, made me think of hide and seek. So when I was a kid, there were no video games, certainly no e-sport video games. We went outside and ran around and got lots of exercise all the time. And we played hide and seek. And I'm telling you, when I was a kid, hide and seek was serious. Lots of merriment, lots and lots and lots of merriment. We had about 3 varieties of hide and seek, and you gathered all the kids in the neighborhood and you played outside or inside. And I have a couple of particular memories which prove how serious it was. One was I remember not being found and staying in my hiding spot for probably 2.5 hours just to prove that I won and could not be found. So there was that, sitting there. My brother one time hid in the laundry basket of our friends in a closet, and he wet his pants in there. He had to go pee, but because this was hide and seek, I think he was about 7 years old, you didn't get up. You let it all go for hide and seek. You did not get found. So he peed all over the laundry basket and all the clothes. And it was a friend's house. So he was pretty upset, crying. And I remember finding him crying in the laundry basket. And Mrs. Hoggard was her name. She had to console him. So I'll share one last little story. When I was I was actually a teacher at the age of 22, and I stayed later in the school with about 5 kids who took a special bus late. And we would often play hide and seek with walkie-talkies. And yes, I was a teacher at age 22 and probably very immature back then. But we had a blast. It was a lot of fun. So hide and seek is not really a sport, and I have lots of fond memories of that. Madam.
At least we have passion and dedication that is common with hide and seek and sports. With that, as per my timing reports, everyone was on time except Stephanie, who took only 16 seconds. And we have a minimum limit of 1 minute. But other than that, everyone were on time. Mr. Grammarian, did everyone use the word of the day?
Yes, all 5 of our table topic speakers, Stephanie, Hassan, Preetam, Destin, and Matt, used the word of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian. With that, I'll shortly release a poll where you have the chance to vote for your favorite table topic. And the Toastmaster will announce the winner at the end of this meeting. And I will hand it back over to Xavier.
Thank you, Bhakti. So I think Bhakti is also going to be organizing our poll. So we are going to give her a second to do that while I introduce the general evaluator. He is a dear friend, very awesome person, and it is me, actually. I will be the general evaluator tonight. Make sure you vote. I see the voting just came out. So send a number back to Bhakti of who you'd like, and that will be who you vote for. I'm going to vote as well. So next, passing it over to me. Welcome to the general evaluation section of tonight. In the general evaluation section, there are 3 parts. The first part is I call upon our evaluators to evaluate the prepared speakers. The second part is to call on the functionaries and they'll give their report. Finally, I get the final say about how the meeting in general went and what kind of feedback we got. Our first speaker tonight was Matthew Mack. Evaluating Matthew Mack was Destin. And Destin has been around for about a year now and has grown very quickly as a speaker and is also a very wise evaluator. I feel like he always picks out something that I don't really notice when he evaluates, which is very cool. So I'm excited to hear what Destin's got tonight. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, dear Toastmasters, and especially Matt. I don't know if it's a good thing, but I would like to start with this evaluation by saying thank you. Thank you for sharing those amazing stories. That was very powerful. I like the way that you started your speech with a narrative, as if you are reading a book, as if you are telling a story, an actual story, which was the case. You are telling an actual story, but it was like reading from a book. And that was so cool. And then you started talking about Khadija. I was like, who is Khadija? You started talking about she was abused by her husband. And at that very moment, you grasped our attention. And then you talked about suicide. I was like, did she die? What happened? And then you say she survived the suicide, and then you kept on. So our attention was grasped from the very beginning. That was really well done from your part. And then you built a context around Khadija's life, around women abuse in Afghanistan. And you asked me to look for how you would convey your emotions. Honestly, I was distracted in the beginning because I was so grasped, but I felt those emotions. I was angry. I felt powerless. At one point, you say that we cannot do anything about it. So I felt powerless. And then I felt hope when you gave us like a solution, what to do to let things sink in. Just be there and your conclusion was amazing. To be present, to listen, and to feel, to be there with those people. When you talked about Hazi's story, it was the same pattern. You started by grasping our attention, how his life was difficult, how you helped him applying for asylum here. And you talked about that attack in his brother's school. And the same feeling, what happened to his brother? Did he die? No, he didn't die. And then you kept on with the story and you talked about his cousin who was actually hurt. So with your stories, you really managed to make us feel emotions for those people. And as I said, I was distracted because I was captivated by your story, but those emotions were there. And at one point I noticed your face, your eyebrows really showed that you were feeling that too. And also I heard you breathing like you were sick of it, like you really expressed those things. So as for the vocal variety, I would say that is one thing you have to improve by adding dialogues. I think that is the one thing that you missed. If you had a lot of dialogues or just a few dialogues, you would have really showed us the vocal variety. Except for that, great job, great stories, and great conclusion. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you for that, Dustin. Our next speaker was Ruchi. Evaluating Ruchi was someone who is a dear friend of mine, who is awesome, and who is not me. It's actually Alex. And I will pass it right over to him.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Ruchi. This was a wonderful speech tonight. You led us through the journey of learning what it is to be a leader and a teacher from the experience of turning around and realizing that you've got a Zoom room full of people who are looking to you for leadership. And that's the best way to know that you're a leader, is when you turn around and realize there's a whole bunch of people following you one way or another. And that experience of growing into that leadership and all those moments of patience and forgiveness that then develop into the beautiful climax of your speech in that webinar was really wonderful. In terms of your organization, simply going through chronologically is always a wonderful way to organize a speech. It leaves very little to memory. There's no clever tricks to it. It's not a 1, 2, 3. It's you're telling the story. And that's always a great way to do it. You had characters in your story, and they each some of them got a chance to give their dialogue, that you had that back and forth. And I especially want to highlight how difficult it can be to SimCon, to simultaneously do sign and English. And sometimes it made it so clear how much a single sign can communicate in terms of I'm feeling nervous, and just that little shake of the hands, how that puts that out there. And so it was really wonderful to get both of those experiences at the same time. And it's an incredible skill to be able to do it. One small bit of feedback. Sorry, my cats are having Thunderdome on the other side of the table. One small bit of feedback about your grammar. You mentioned that something is a part and parcel of, that leadership is a part and parcel of teaching, and it's is part and parcel with. Don't ask me why, but that's the way that idiom goes. In terms of this speech, you had so many wonderful things in terms of the way that you communicated, the way that you added dialogue. The one thing I think I would have appreciated a little bit more of is with your characters, to give us just a moment to meet them, that we got their dialogue, we got their experience within the story. So we got to experience their story arcs, but just a little bit more time to meet them, to have their description, where they're from, what they look like, so that when we experience that story arc with them, we can place them. I know you had two different characters, but I couldn't quite place them in the arc of your story. And so that is another way that you can help us to follow you all the way through. So wonderful organization, wonderful skills with SimConning, and just help us to meet the folks that you're taking us through in the story, and we'll enjoy it that much more. Wonderful speech tonight, Mr. General Evaluator.
Good work, Alex. This concludes our evaluation section for our prepared speakers. Next, I'm going to call upon our functionaries, starting with Bhakti. How was our timing tonight?
So for prepared speeches, Matt was within time with 6 minutes and 58 seconds. Ruchi was 8 minutes and 11 seconds, which was a bit over the time limit, but nevertheless a great speech. Table topics, I already mentioned it, and with evaluations, Dustin, you were at 3 minutes 32 seconds, just 2 seconds too much. And Alex was at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So good job, Alex. That's my timing report for today. Over to you, Xavier.
Thank you, Bhakti. Next up, we have our grammarian, who is Alex, going to give his report.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian again, fellow Toastmasters. Tonight, I'm going to use my grammarian report to explain why categories and labels like sports just aren't really useful unless there's a meaningful reason to gatekeep them. Esports are sports. No, I'm going to use my grammarian report to actually give meaningful feedback. Here we go. Matt.
Is this a sport?
This is not a sport unless I want it to be, in which case it could be. Matt, you used wonderful language. Just like Destin was saying, it felt like we were reading a book, that you had crafted the language at the beginning of your speech to add weight to what is a really difficult topic to feel, especially right at the beginning. So to use that crafted language to help guide us into that moment was really powerful. Another bit of rhetoric that you used in your speech was that your hearts don't just grow bigger, they grow connected. And that repetition of grow bigger, grow connected, that's a really wonderful rhetorical device. And right at the end, the use of a rule of three: be present, listen, feel. It's always really powerful to use that rule of three, especially with those pauses to help us feel it with you. The one thing I will say is that if you picked one of those rhetorical gems and repeated it through your speech, it would make it that much more powerful. I gave Ruchi a little bit of feedback about her, the idiom that she used. I also want to just really applaud your definitions of gentrification and environmental justice. Very well done on those to help us understand what those words mean. Frida mentioned in the chat that was the first time he understood gentrification, and I think it was definitely expanding for my understanding of it too. One little bit of a metaphor, or it's not a metaphor, just a clever way of saying it, that you had a room full of students and double the number of eyes. That was just a fun way to get us thinking about what it feels like to be up in front of a room. So that's our grammarian feedback for our speakers tonight, and that's my report for tonight. Mr. General, bye-bye.
Thank you, as always, Alex. I always appreciate your grammarian reports, even if they're 5 to 7 minutes. Next up, our odd counter, before I give my report, is Freedom. How do we do?
We did excellent with the ahs and ums and all the filler words. Xavier, I got 3. Bhakti, I just got 1. Matt did not use any during his speech. He used 1 during his table topics. Ruchi had 1. Hassan had 1 during table topics, and I got nothing from Destin. That's all. Back to you, Xavier.
Great work, team. If you all beat me, then you're good in my book. Lastly here, it is my report. And first off, I just want to say congratulations to everyone who valiantly took on roles tonight, was very flexible with our meeting. We had a few dropouts, which happens even in the best of meetings, and helps us develop as leaders, because for the most part, the thing that we plan doesn't actually happen. So we have to be flexible and make do with what we've got. And everyone stepped up to make this meeting very fun, full of merriment, and brought the energy of Tigertales, which is so common in our meetings. One point where I think we can learn something is in our table topic section. Bhakti stepped up, came up with questions right on the spot, or maybe a few minutes before, but she did an awesome job, especially because questions are so hard to word the right way, to make it make sense in the moment to everyone that you're asking the question to. And this can help both in meetings, in speeches that we give, that our word choice in questions is powerful. So for example, if you wanted to improve it for next time, you might say something like, wrestling is now considered a sport. or breakdancing is now considered a sport at the Olympics. What do you consider, or what is a sport that you wouldn't consider a sport? Because I want something like that, to where you're just more concise, but you can kind of bring up your story first almost, and then your question to give it context. But it is very tough to get the wording down on those, especially stepping up, which you did quite valiantly. That is my rant for tonight. And now I'm going to pass it back to the Toastmaster, me. We are back tonight, everyone, for the most exciting part of the meeting, and that is the winner of our table topics. Can I get a drum roll, please? The winner is Hassan.
Oh.
If any of you live in Rustic Village, feel free to walk to Hassan's house and give him a piece of chocolate for us. And that
Yes, please.
concludes, oh, well, somebody was saying something, but that concludes our meeting for tonight. And to close us out, our wise words from President Bhakti.
Thank you, Xavier. An excellent job from everyone tonight, since a lot of folks didn't show up. So I want to take a moment to appreciate everyone's effort tonight. We have a guest, Stephanie, and I really appreciate that for your first meeting, you stepped up to do a table topic. From my personal experience, I was so nervous, I didn't do that for weeks. So I really appreciate your courage. But I would like to have some feedback from your side about our meeting tonight.
I thank Asan for inviting me here. He has been inviting me since last year, but the schedule was never like a good fit for me. And then today it was like I could make it, and I'm like, let me see how it works. And then it's really a nice experience. I'm looking forward to participating in much more session and to becoming more involved in the group activity.
Awesome. That's always great to hear, Stephanie. You can drop your email address in the chat and I can get back to you with details about how all of this work. So you can join us regularly. And we are glad to have you here. With that, I have just one announcement that next week we'll be having. Um, did Xavier want to say something?
I do have an announcement, but I can go second.
Okay. So the announcement is that next week we are having our elections for the next term. And me and Hassan will be reaching out shortly to potential candidates. But watch out, next week will not be a regular meeting, but it will be an election for the new term. With that, let's move on to what Xavier has to say.
Sweet. So tomorrow night, my roommate, Lou, assembled a team and we have an event at 6 p.m. It is Zoom online, and it is a team building Toastmasters event where Toastmasters from all around our district are going to come together and do some icebreaker stuff, but also share ideas that have worked during this COVID time and outside of it, so that we can all improve our Toastmasters clubs. If you guys can make it, I can drop you where to sign up. Just let me know.
Thank you, Xavier. With that, we are done with announcements. If you're interested to participate in any roles, maybe not next week, but next to next week, you can contact Hassan. And with that, I will conclude tonight's meeting. Thank you everyone for joining tonight.